Good morning, everybody. The book club is back in service. We are reading Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. This first meeting is pages 1 through 74, and today we have Evan, Nick, Tristan, and Joe today. So special guest, and he's going to be part of this book club with this book. So excited to have him here with his thoughts and insight as well. Yeah, we're gonna start it out. I'm gonna kind of break it up into like 3 little sections, and we'll kind of keep the same format. But so the first, as you guys may or may not know it, if you're reading along, this is broken into a bunch of different little chapters with each little topic and lots of different quotes. So the first one we're going to talk about is ruling over the body, and this is the chapter about Lou Gehrig, the baseball player. So there were players with more talent, with more personality, with more brilliance, but nobody outworked him. Nobody cared more about conditioning, and nobody loved the game more. Another one. He knew that getting comfortable was the enemy, and that success is an endless series of invitations to get comfortable. It's easy to be disciplined when you have nothing. What about when you have everything? What about when you're so talented that you can get away with not giving everything? And then when a man can control his life, his physical needs, his lower self, as Muhammad Ali would later say, he elevates himself. And we owe it to ourselves, to our goals, to the game, to keep going, to keep pushing, to stay pure, to be tough, to conquer our bodies before they conquer us. And then the next little chapter we have is Attack the Dawn. So this is for the morning people out there. And this is a quote from Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. We hear the most powerful man in the world trying to convince himself to get out of bed at dawn when the lower part of himself wants desperately to stay in bed. So that's a little nugget there that we all struggle with.
I think about that quote every morning when I wake up at 6 a.m.
Yep.
I might. He has it taped on his wall. I might do that just so I can get up a lot easier because I struggle, man.
I think a lot of what that battle is too is the night before.
Yeah.
You know, that's the hardest part, is like having the discipline to put everything down and actually rest. You know, rest is a big part of it.
Yeah, going into bed doesn't mean going into bed and looking at your phone for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It means going to bed and falling asleep within soon.
It's not easy to do.
It's hard. Yeah. I struggle with that too sometimes, honestly.
I struggle with that.
And the discipline to do things that make you so you're tired, like having a good workout and eating a healthy meal.
Yeah, if
and,
you work hard, you're going to go to sleep easy.
Yeah,
You know?
and so, and I think this is probably actually a better format. Maybe we'll just go into each chapter and kind of discuss, because as I was thinking about Lou Gehrig, we were talking about, I tweaked my rib on Monday.
Yeah.
And so I'm like in my head right now, and I'm at this big book club, but I'm not going to train today. And part of me is like, I'm being a little bitch, you know?
I feel that way with my shoulder right now.
Yeah, you guys are going.
Dude, I had to watch all of 10 Round Tuesday yesterday.
Yeah. But dude, that was great. You provided a lot of value in
Exactly.
the videos. Like, that was super dope. Like, I was watching Charlie and Luke downstairs, and like,
It's hilarious.
It's like, man, these guys got good jiu-jitsu, and like, you know, being able to watch it on film is like a big difference, you know, because it's hard to tell during class.
Yeah.
So with ruling the body, it's also, you know, like we talked about these paradoxes, right? Like the extreme of like, I own my body and I can do whatever I want through the pain and through that stuff. And then also recognizing that I've hurt my ribs before, and knowing that if I try to come back a little bit too early, that it sets me back even further. So having the discipline to give myself the rest that my body is requiring. And so balancing that out and then meeting myself with like some grace in that is where, because I can play that game of like, I'm falling behind. I'm not pushing hard enough. I'm not the man I need to, you know. It's easy to play these stories in our head. And really, it's like meeting reality with whatever story we want to have. Like, I tweaked my rib. It sucks. It sucks sleeping. It sucks coughing. It sucks, like sneezing. Breathing. So, like, I probably shouldn't push jiu-jitsu right now. Yeah. Like, give it a little bit of time to heal, and not be afraid that, like, I'm not giving my best. So
Be over-disciplined.
Yes.
Just be like, I'm pushing through either way, you know. I have like a David Goggins mindset where it's just like, I don't care if my legs are broken, I'm going to keep going. But
I think my swimming history is a very good way to describe the wrong way to do it. Kind of what you were saying. When I was younger, I was hit by a car and I broke my clavicle, and I've had problems with my shoulders ever since then. And I swam as hard as I could every single day. And every year, without fail, there was a period of time for 3 weeks where I couldn't swim anymore because my shoulders were just in too much pain. Happened every single year because I just didn't take care of it. Then, one year I was like, I'm sick of this because I want to actually be able to just stay and not lose all this extra time. So then I ended up, on certain days, going lighter, but also I went to a physical therapist to get exercises to do with them. I also went to a personal trainer too to strengthen the smaller muscles that weren't worked. And because of that, after that, I have never had to stop for anything for 3 weeks at a time because I was able to be disciplined in knowing when to take a break, but also seeking advice to make smaller muscles better. So I thought that would be a pretty good connection right there.
It's the long-term goal versus the short-term goal, right? Like sacrificing that. The next book we have is the next chapter is The Strenuous Life is the Best Life. And if greatness is our aim, if we want to be productive, courageous members of society, we need to take care of our bodies, not just in the gym, but in the kitchen too. A healthy diet and not abusing drugs or drinks does much of the heavy lifting. You are a high-end race car. Fuel accordingly. Mm-hmm. So, I struggle with that. I feel like there's times when I'm eating really healthy and having my shakes and I do intermittent fasting, and then there's times where, life gets busy, and then, or you're on vacation or you have fit friends in town or whatever. There's always an excuse to.
Yeah, I'm a chronic overeater of pastries and sweets. Joe knows. Whenever we go out, I always end up.
In my life. Yeah.
And, every time I got last week I got a big brownie for dinner, and that was it.
Oh my gosh.
So that's where I end up falling short at. Is the training is so easy, but the food, eating the right way, is 10 times harder, and everyone thinks it's the other way around. But I can show up to training 3 times a day, but I can't eat a healthy meal 3 times a day. So.
Well, especially with meal prep and being busy. So the meal prep is a lot of work beforehand, and making sure you have the right groceries, making sure you have the right ingredients, the time to do it, and setting up that. So that's where my family life is.
Maddie said you guys do a really good job at it.
We're trying to meal prep more and trying to one thing we're focusing on is just overcooking. So we have individual meals throughout the week. It's easier to kind of eat healthy that way. But it's harder with kids, man. Kids do make it challenging.
Yeah.
But that's also an excuse.
Yeah.
It's for me, I really try to be disciplined about not going to the grocery store hungry either. That's a big thing because if I'm hungry and I go to the grocery store,
extra stuff.
Oh, you buy all the crap that you that's the decision.
Yeah.
When you buy it or don't buy it, that's the hardest part. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's food has a huge impact on us physically, emotionally. I feel like so much of that, if you eat like garbage, you're going to feel not like you should be.
You're a big guy. At the fire hall, you guys eat a lot.
Oh,
right?
yeah. So we had, and cooking was such a big part of the firehouse. You'd have big breakfasts, big. The whole day, yeah. So a big thing for the firehouse, we actually had these huge plates that were 12 inches, they were ovals, and we would just fill them up because that's what you did. So we actually, some of the stations would institute smaller plates, and you actually eat less food when you have smaller plates.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Because you have a tendency to fill up the plate when it's this huge oval versus
What's the biggest you ever got?
Before our jiu-jitsu, I was 240 pounds, 245 pounds.
Yeah.
So
because you got a big frame. So.
Yeah.
Right now.
I'm 205.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd 200 is a good weight for me. I feel strong at 200. I feel like my weight can fluctuate 5-10 pounds within a day, 5 pounds within a day or two, depending on how much I'm eating or how much I'm drinking. And but yeah, when I was a heavy drinker, I was drinking a lot, and I was 245 pounds, and
it keeps a lot of that extra weight on you. Yeah.
A lot of the liquid, and then eating like garbage
messes
too.
Up your sleep too.
Oh,
yeah.
Totally. Yep. The next chapter is Quit Being a Slave. This one was Dwight E. Eisenhower. At the core of this idea of self-mastery is an instinctive reaction against anything that masters us. Who can be free when they have lost, as one addiction specialist puts it, the freedom to abstain? Mm-hmm. So that kind of goes back to what we were talking about. you know.
One thing about that though is, like, they say like you shouldn't desire anything, but you can desire discipline. You know, you can want something like that so bad and be a slave to it. You know, like sometimes I want to train so much that it's actually like a detriment, like to my day. You know, like it's like, hey, I have these responsibilities to do. It's like, well, I could go train instead, and it's almost like an addiction, but it's not like the traditional one. You know, and that's like one thing where I feel like temperance comes in, which is discipline. It's like being able to like balance even like the good things. So you can do too much of one good thing, and it becomes a negative thing.
Kind of like how they say drinking too much water is actually bad for you.
Yep.
It's good, but when you drink too much, it's bad for you.
Yeah,
Even water, yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, so I would say I'm a slave to jiu-jitsu, 100%, man. I need to figure out how to, and I feel like that's why the shoulder injury I feel like is helping me a lot. It's because I get to balance. Actually have a balance of things, you know, because I struggle with, like we were talking about with the last book club, it's like struggling with balance and like keeping everything in check. So that's my 2 cents about it.
Yeah. I know when I was younger, I used to play video games, probably 14 or 15 hours every day.
Same here, dude.
Every day. I was very good, but I came home and all I did was play video games. When I had friends over, we're playing games. Otherwise, you're not coming over.
Yep.
It took control of my life very
Big time.
fast.
Oh, huge.
And I noticed that. I'm like, wow. Like, I mean, I had friends, but the friends I had were either people I met online or friends at school who had the same hobbies as I did, who played video games as much as I did, so I could play with someone else. So once I realized I need to kind of take a step back and, you know, talk to people.
We need balance with everything. Like if we do too much jiu-jitsu, too much video games, it's good to be like out in nature or like spending time with friends or family, doing something different than like the traditional training. You know, I'm trying to do that more in my life too, is like take every opportunity to enjoy the moments, whatever you're doing, you know.
Yeah, actually, going back to what we talked about with last book, I actually started to forcibly schedule myself out of doing games. Like I scheduled myself to go outside and just, I didn't even give myself an idea what to do. I just was like, go outside for the next these 2 hours.
Walk outside.
Yeah, just touch grass.
Then, you know, you got to always balance it too with what you said is like balance with your goals, because if you do want to be a champion of something, you do have to have a somewhat imbalance, but then you have to have the balance when you're scheduling that time outside of that. You know, I think it's really important because you're not going to be great at anything without having a lot of time put in. You know?
Yeah, because I mean, Lou Gehrig, he played so much baseball. You could argue that he was unbalanced, but I bet he would argue that he had as much balance as he wanted.
Yeah.
And so I guess like balance is just like completely individual.
What your goals are.
Yeah, like I feel like a dad's gonna have a different, you know, goal than like a full-time athlete.
Yeah.
A full-time athlete's
What are
gonna have a
your
different goal
goals?
than like, you know, maybe someone who's a lot older. You know, so it's like I think balance is just pure.
I like how you pointed at me, just so everyone knows that he was.
You got to have the video part attached to
You're the
this.
But someone that's really a whole lot older. I love it, but no, and that's true. And so like the Lou Gehrig thing, where you know he talked about that too in that section where he felt like he was sacrificing or not sacrificing because he was giving rid of a bunch of other stuff. You know, he was tempted to start drinking to kind of compensate, and then his coach pulled him aside and said, "Hey, that takes you down a certain path, and it's going to be
coach right there,
and it's going to be it might be short term, like it might help you with some of your nerves or whatever, but long term, the path doesn't lead to where you want to go.
Yep.
So, you know, you can."
Yeah, that's a good coach, man.
I like that he was honest with him too.
Yeah.
And he wasn't just like, "You're an idiot for doing this." Like it's probably
He
gonna
totally
help you a
understood.
little bit,
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and that's the thing is all these addictions
That's how
are.
to suck you in.
We do them for a reason to like escape something that we're dealing with, and it's okay to have some sort of escape sometimes. We need that, but it's when it gets into a place where it's unhealthy and it starts become a slave to it. Yeah. The next chapter was avoid the superfluous, and that was Cato the Elder. And a person who lives below their means has far more latitude than a person who can't. Real wealth, he understood, was autonomy. No one is less free than the person trapped on the treadmill, moving faster and faster and faster, but going nowhere. The less you desire, the richer you are, the freer you are, the more powerful you are. And that one is pretty powerful.
Yeah. I'm a very I've been into minimalism since like I was like 15, and it's funny because like I have no sense of style now because I've just like taken this so to heart. Like I haven't bought me a pair of clothes in a couple years because I'm just like, well, these ones already fit. So like, why would I need new ones? you know, and like people are like dress up nice for this event, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna look the same I did 4 years ago. But I think it like I remember someone talking about, you know, the less you have to wear, the less you have to think about it, and you have more mental capacity to just do more throughout the rest of the day. So like if I'm just like, here's a t-shirt and some pants, I'm just gonna throw
Steve
these
Jobs,
on.
he wore the
Yep.
turtlenecks
Yep.
every day.
Yeah, Bill Gates I think does the
I
same
read that
thing.
book. That was a good book. It was fun.
And so it's like also just buying things you don't need. Like every time I spend more than $20 on something, I have to genuinely ask myself like I'm gonna use if I'm gonna get $20 of use out of it. Because I've got a lot of stuff I bought that like I used never use, and it's just a waste of money. You know. So I think that's a very important one. But you can also use temperance with that too. You don't want to do it too much.
And in this chapter with Angela Merkel, her looks, we'll talk about that too. But it's like it's a balance too, because you don't want to look homeless either, right? Like there's, you know, because it's like it's taking.
Jordan Peterson would disagree with
Yeah.
It's taking care of yourself and presenting yourself in such a way, but also recognizing, why am I doing this? Like, am I buying this clothes because I feel like I have a sense of lack, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not amongst my peers in the same caliber, or is it because my jeans have holes in them and I look disheveled and I don't look like I'm taking care of myself? What's the intent? Yeah. And there's something to be said about like, because I've always like been very frugal, and I'm shifting my mindset slightly, because frugality a lot of times for me, I'll buy like something cheap and then it falls apart and then it's a piece of shit. Like, you know, versus like buying something of high quality, so you need less of them. You need, like I'm wearing Origin jeans right now. These are not cheap jeans.
I've wanted a pair of those for a while.
But they're really comfortable and they'll probably last me 10 years or more. And so there's a balance of like, do I buy a cheap pair of jeans for 30 or 40 bucks versus, you know, or less, or do I buy a nice pair of jeans, support someone and something I believe in, and recognize that these are going to be comfortable and they're going to last a while. They're really well built. So it's like that balance, right?
I definitely do the exact same thing. My dad pretty much has started us at that point. You want to not spend too much, but when you do buy something, make sure it's good, so it lasts longer.
Yeah.
Like, I guess my gis, for example, my gi was $150. You can get a $60 gi very easily.
I got a $40 gi.
Exactly, but usually those gis, you know, don't last nearly as long. I've had my same gi since the beginning. And if I bought, you know, the $40 or $50 or $60 gi, probably would have had to buy a new one every single year, which would have ended up costing more than my $150 gi. Because even if in like 4 years, if I bought gis, those $60 gis 3 times, that's $180. Look, I just spent $30 more than what if I just bought the one nice gi. And I do that with, as you can, with clothes, even with shoes. I mean, these shoes are kind of beat up, but still, these shoes, they were nice shoes. They're beat up now, but they still work and they still look good enough. You can't really tell they're beat up. So I do like that mindset of, you don't want to excessively spend. Kind of like, are you buying this for me, or am I buying this for you to look at me?
Yeah.
But then there's a balance too of like you really do, how you present yourself to the world is important. I do believe that, and I don't think I ever really valued that until like just this year really started thinking about it. I was like, man, like it really does make a difference, honestly. It shows that you're like prepared, you're taking care of yourself.
And then later on in
People
chapters,
notice that.
they talk about like cleaning your room, brushing your hair. Like I was even letting my beard go, and I felt like, because right now I can do that, right? And it's like the extreme of being the fireman that can't shave, has to shave his hair all the time, my beard. Now I was kind of letting it go, and then you shave it, and you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm cleaner again. Like I feel like I'm like presenting a certain way.
I agree completely.
And so yeah, it's temperance, man. There's no right way, and that's having these discussions are super important, because we can kind of look inside of what our motivations are.
It can probably evolve with how you are too. You know, you can swing one way, and you're like, man, I'm caring too much about what people think about me. I need to ease back a little bit, and then I'm getting too sloppy now, you know?
Yeah.
And like finding that balance is tricky.
Kind of like how the coach in one of the books said they banned shaving in the locker room because they wanted everyone to come ready. They already cleanly shaven, so when they get there, they're mentally not, you know, cleaning up. They're already cleaned up and ready to go. I kind of like that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
AOJ's like that a lot.
Oh, dude, you know AOJ's spick and
And
span.
then you got like B team, which is on the opposite end of the spectrum, which is interesting.
I'm sure that
dichotomy.
maybe the B team people would say that other people are too clean and they're focusing too much on things that don't matter and they're not focusing on
They
things.
need
So
to
it's like,
relax
but
a little
both
bit,
people have
loosen
different
up.
outlooks, both people have different balances. You know?
Yeah.
Different
Yeah.
balances.
So it's like, which balance do you align the most with? And it's obviously not unhealthy. Like someone who's drinking, 40 beers a day can be like, yeah, this is balanced. I'm not dying,
Yeah.
So, but you got to be rational with it. But
Well, that leads right into the next one, which is clean up your desk. So this is Robert Moses. And if we want to think well and work well, it doesn't start with our mind. It starts with walking around and cleaning up. The space where great work is done is holy. We must respect it because a person comfortable with a messy workspace will become comfortable with sloppy work. Be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work. I love that line.
That's a good one.
Be violent and original in your work. And that's
What chapter is that one in?
that was pages 40 through 42. Clean up your desk.
That's a good one right there.
And this was the Robert Moses. He was the military guy, and so I like that because a scattered, they talk about cleanliness is next to godliness, and like if you look at your house and it's in disarray, and then when you have kids, it's really easy for that to happen. You start feeling anxiety, or you're like, dude, like you just need to get it cleaned up, or you want to like. You're not thinking clearly, and you're being distracted or whatever. You're not feeling your emotions, how they are coming up. Clean up a little bit.
Yep.
Take 2 minutes and just pick up a few things.
Feels good too.
And it feels really good to just action, right? Creating action, movement starts the process of cleaning up how you're thinking.
They had Andrew Huberman, he's the Stanford neuroscientist podcast, and he was talking about when you learn something, if you do a menial task like laundry or dishes or whatever, for like an extended period of time after intense deep learning, that your mind actually learns it better than if you were to sleep after, if you were to go, whatever about your day. It's like that task actually helps it settle in your brain.
I've done something kind of similar to that. When I noticed I didn't want to do stuff, like just productive stuff in general, what I ended up doing was, that's when I did my laundry actually. What I did was, I'm going to put my laundry in the washer, and the entire time my laundry's in the laundry machine, I'm going to do something. So between have it being a washer, then throwing it to the dryer, that entire time I'm productive, and then switching laundry was like my break, and then once it was in the dryer, I went back to the productive thing, and then afterwards, when my laundry was finished, even if I didn't finish what I was doing, I took that as, okay, I'm done for today. And it was kind of a weird little schedule to get myself. Like, if I really don't feel like doing something, I was like, I'll just do laundry. And that kick-started me, okay, laundry's in the laundry now, I'm on the clock.
yeah,
It's just breaking that threshold of action. Because
Yeah.
we're in our heads, we're thinking all this stuff we got to do, and we're like, you get into this paralysis moment of like, I just don't want to do anything right now. I need a break. And that's our mind telling us that, versus like, you just take one step and you start the laundry, you're now in action mode. You're not thinking anymore. You're like started that process of moving in that direction.
Yeah, it's like Jordan Peterson says, make your bed every morning before you criticize the world. It's like, if you can make your bed, it shows that you're taking care of yourself. It shows that like that this is a space that's very important, and then that you can carry that on to other places. But if you have like anytime I go to a friend's house and their bed's messy, I kind of judge them a little bit. I'm like, bro, you're not making your bed, but like, because it just feels like so clean, and you feel already disciplined from just doing something that takes like maybe 30 seconds, and it helps your entire day after that. Because every time I don't make my bed, I feel like the whole day's a mess for some reason. It's a really weird thing, you start the day off with a win, I think is what they say, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Those little wins. The next one is just show up. This is Thomas Edison.
It's my favorite chapter.
This was a really good one. Once something is done, you can build on it. Once you get started, momentum can grow. When you show up, you can get lucky. Is it hard? Yes, but the good news is it's hard. Most people don't do it. I like those two lines, and I've always been considered lucky, which, my family would always be like, Evan, you have a horseshoe up your ass. Like, that was like what they would say to me. But I was always someone that was like, I looked for opportunities, and I was trying to always be prepared for those opportunities. And then that's my definition of luck is when opportunity meets preparation. So if you're always prepared for stuff and you're always trying to be ready for whatever's life's going to throw at you, if an opportunity shows up and you see it and you capitalize, and then you're lucky. You create your own luck.
You said you've always been like that?
I've been like this since I was a kid.
Yeah, because I had a question for everyone. This is like the final question I was going to ask, but this is a good time to bring it up. Is what event in your life made you disciplined, or were you always like that? Because I know when I was growing up, I was not very disciplined, and I was like the most extreme kid ever. Like if I wanted to do something, I would do it all the way, or I just do nothing at all. And my dad used to always, I think this is my dad's way of teaching me stoicism when I was at a young age, because I love Star Wars. He would always tell me only a Sith deals in absolutes. And so like that's temperance in of itself. I always loved that quote, because I thought it was like a crazy quote. And now as I get older, I'm like, oh my God, like my dad had the meta in mind. He was thinking ahead, you know? And like I've had plenty of events in my life that like where I went from undisciplined to being disciplined. And I was just wondering for y'all, like what was like an event in your life, or were you just always like that? You know?
I'll start. I mean, so discipline for me, particularly I went on a big road trip, and I was trying to discover what I wanted to do with my life and my career. And so I did a huge road trip across the country, and I found firefighting. So as soon as I knew a direction I wanted to go in, that was all in. Yep. Like it was like, okay, now I have a path. So now there's nothing that will stop me. Like literally I had the mentality, it was like, there's literally nothing that will ever stop me from getting my mission. So, that created a ton of discipline around that one singular decision. Yeah. And so having a singular aim, a singular focus, a singular path that you're trying to go towards, for me, because I was really on that trip to like discover it, like to kind of like take some time and like really self-discovery, figure out what it is that makes me tick and what I wanted to do. And when I found firefighting, like that was it at the time. And having since been left the fire service, like I'm so grateful for that, having what it did for me and my family. But it created a ton of discipline, because there was everything I was doing was in alignment with that goal. Yep. Right. So you have a goal, you start going towards it.
What about you, Joe? You always been disciplined, or is there like an event that like made you disciplined?
I think I've always been pretty disciplined.
Yeah, because you played sports your whole life, right? Like, since you were like a little boy.
Yeah, I think my dad is just a very disciplined individual. Like, he's one of those guys that worked construction 7 days a week. And I just liked, but when he was home, he was just really chill. He was cool. He was funny. He wasn't home a lot, though, but I respected that he was, like, working a lot. And then he was cool when he got back. He didn't say, like, man, I worked so hard. It never heard him complain one time.
Yeah, my grandma
never
was
said
like
he was tired.
People who don't complain at all are like a different breed. Like my grandma never
love
complained
those
at all.
people.
It's like my dad. That's like,
and he would
your
just laugh,
dad never complains.
and he'd be present in the moment, ask us about our day, play with us. So I was just like, I just want to be like that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Nice. Good metric. What do you think?
So, I think I had two types of discipline. I think I've always been disciplined. However, I think my turning point was when I got baptized.
Yeah.
And that's when I became much more disciplined. Before that, I was disciplined, but that's because I was forcibly, like my dad made me disciplined. Yeah. But after I got baptized, I chose my discipline route instead of just having it happen to me. Because I just, when I was younger, I kind of just went with the flow. Yep. Like my dad was like, do this, do this, do this. I'm like, you got it, dude.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll check the boxes on the checklist, and I can get it done. But after I got baptized, I was like, you know what? I can make my own checkbox too. And I think that was kind of my turning point. Yeah.
Self-motivated.
My dad did that a lot. And then he stopped doing it when I was 12. I think that's like when he's like, all right, he has enough autonomy to do what he wants now, because he stopped making me play sports, stopped making me do anything. And it was like just cold turkey. So I started playing video games the whole time. And then like the turning point for me is actually a funny story, because my sister Casey, who Joe graduated with, like she got me Burger King one day, and I was like, hey, can you go put my Burger King on a plate? Like that's how like much I just didn't do anything. And I was playing video games. And then she was like, you're going to get fat and no one's going to love you. And I was like, you might be onto something. So like, and the next day, then like the next week, I started going to the gym. And I was like 14 at the time. But she was just like, she just looked at me and I was like, she's like, you're going to be fat and no one's going to love you. And I was like, so is that a no on my Burger King? Like, you're not going to my plate? And then I remember she got me the Burger King and I just didn't even eat it. I just looked at it for like 4 hours. I was like, damn, like.
Yeah, that's true. And there's levels to the discipline. Like I said, I feel like I've always been disciplined, but there's definitely been periods where I've been more disciplined.
Yeah.
Like Samuel was always like crazy
Samuel's
because you know
on
how
it.
much he trains.
Yeah.
It's unreal. And like he would be on me like, man, you trained twice today. Why are you being lazy? You know? And like, I mean, training twice of like rolling. Like it was like a 10-round Tuesday
Yep.
of practice. You know? Like, what do you mean? You know? So like, I learned that there was levels to discipline.
Levels.
Too.
Oh yeah.
I feel like something interesting about discipline too, which I don't know if this is exactly touching on the topic, but it depends. Like, discipline isn't just doing what you have to do. I feel like, because when I was younger, I was honestly, I was very above average. I didn't have to study for tests, and I still get A's on them. I didn't have to.
You're a lucky son of a bitch. I'll tell you
That's
that.
what, like, because I'd never studied it. And like, everyone would think I disciplined because I got A's or B pluses on tests, but I studied for a test. It's the night before the test. I'll look at my notes for half an hour, and that was literally it. So I feel like discipline
That can create bad habits. Though.
can create. Well, I feel like discipline, as you're kind of saying, is per person, because for me, all I needed for discipline was half. That's why I played so much video games, because I didn't have to do
It's the
as much
same as
studying.
an athlete that's really
Yeah.
gifted, but
Like they
you
like,
know,
I train
usually
one
they
today
get
and it's like-
surpassed by the
yeah.
guys that are
Yeah,
because at the top levels they're disciplined and talented.
Just to me, discipline comes down to like integrity of talking to yourself.
Yeah. Like,
And
am
like,
I fulfilling myself?
Am I being true to myself right now? And like, if being true to yourself is having that burger, then that's true to yourself, because you might need that burger right then. And like, but owning that. But when you start having those shameful feelings or that regret, or knowing that you're not giving it everything,
But then there's also balance to that, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, I ask that question myself every night before I go to bed. Like, did I do enough today? And, like, with my shoulder right now, like, it's like I did everything in my power, but to me, it doesn't feel like I got all of it. Because I'm always, like, striving for more, better, like better every day. That, like, there is a balance when it comes to asking that question. Like, that's the whole thing I'm getting with reading this book is, like, I take everything to an extreme like I always have. So, like, someone's like, Luke Gehrig practiced for 2,100 games straight. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do 2,100 practices straight, I guess, and just never take a break. And then the next one is like, hey, make sure you rest. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to rest now. But then, like, the next chapter is like, hey, make sure you're grinding. And the next chapter, I'm like, okay, it's time to grind. And the next chapter is like, hey, make sure you sleep. And I'm like, oh, it's like throwing me on like a whirlwind. It's like
Balance.
yeah, like, so the whole book is like throwing me for like a mental loop. Because I've
all
always
these
been
paradoxes.
extreme on both ends.
reminds me of the last chapter, the last book.
Yeah.
I read. Just the dichotomy of leadership.
Yep.
well, let's
Dilemma.
keep moving along here. We got Sweat the Small Stuff. Coach John Wooden, UCLA coach. I've read his leadership book. It's amazing. But he talks about, by focusing on form, by sweating the small stuff, we make ourselves stronger. Stronger, in fact, that if we'd just rushed in and thrown ourselves at supposedly harder than if we had supposedly harder problems. Dating perhaps, this is an interesting one too. Dating back perhaps to the time memorial is the poem and proverb about a horse. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. It begins. And then because of the shoe, the horse was lost. And because of the horse, the rider. And because of the rider, the message. And because of the message, the battle. And because of the battle, the kingdom. For want of a nail, the kingdom was lost. So, those small things, right? Like, yeah.
There's a lot of small things. I feel like that's what's good about martial arts in general is because, like, you have to sweat the small things, Like Joe's been telling me, like, keep your knees to your chest. Like, don't extend your legs. And that's like the smallest thing you can say. It's not like, hey, in this part of the move, you need to do this better. It's like, hey, no, like, just a broad overview, just do this.
Yeah.
I feel like martial arts, it starts with, like, hey, how do you tie your belt? Like, because nobody knows how to tie their belt. And I think in the kids' class today, I'm going to just teach everyone at the very start how to tie their belt because I think it's the most important thing. It's like, how do you tie your shoes? You don't ask mom and dad to tie your shoes. Like, that's a critical thing you learn. And, like, the belt to me symbolizes, like, discipline, like, freedom, like, confidence. And, like, if you're tying that belt, like, that's like a promise to yourself.
Yeah.
And if that belt knot's loose, that's a loose promise you're going to have around your waist.
I like that.
Also, when the belt's tied wrong, when it goes up and down,
Dude,
that just bothers
oh
me
my
so
gosh.
much. That bothers me so much, honestly.
Yeah, there's like 4 knots and they're all construed. I'm like, dude, oh my lord. It's rough, man. But I think the sweating of the small
Didn't
stuff
Gordon
is so
ties
important.
wrong in that one incident?
Yeah, he does. I think he
They
does it
did
on purpose. He has to do it on
had to.
purpose, man. I mean, he doesn't have a belt to tie, so he just has that nice rash guard he wears.
Yeah.
So, but I think that sweating the small stuff is really important.
I think that kind of is talking almost pretty. It's essentially the butterfly effect, And I feel like kind of by doing so many small things, it eventually turns into a bigger thing. Like making your bed every day, that's a small thing. Just, I don't know, closing your drawers. Like honestly,
Yeah.
that's a very small thing. But I notice instantly when my drawers are open, I'm like, that's messy.
Yep.
So I try to close them right away because it feels messy. So I don't know. I feel like some of the small stuff leads eventually to bigger stuff, as you're saying, with techniques. Hold this grip 2 inches lower than up here. And the more that adds up, now you have a whole bunch of small details that when you're in a competition, they didn't learn that one detail, so you're able to break out and get around them. So the small details are what you win. What makes you win on something compared to someone else who didn't do the small details. You always win on that little detail. Always is what you usually win on.
Yep. Honestly, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
These next two I'll put together since they're what you were talking about before with regards to the two extremes, right? Because we have first is hustle, 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 and then the other one's slow down to go faster.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one. Those two chapters back to back.
So they're back to back, and I'm sure they're like that for a very good reason because it's the temperance. So, in hustle, 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 it says, in the end, war as well as life is about getting up and going, about diving in, even if it's scary or hard or uncertain. Gehrig would say, I believe every player owes it to himself, his club, and to the public to hustle every minute he is on the field. And they talk about that baseball player that was like, I'm not a runner. I don't run out, singles or something like that. And he got thrown out, right?
Yep.
And then the next chapter is slow down to go faster. And they say, they like to say in the military that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Do it right and it goes quickly. Try to go too quickly and it won't go right.
I say that a lot in my kids' class too. So it's like, it's not about speed, it's about technique, you know? But also, you know, like the hustle, 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 it's like you have to do it. Like there is a such thing as too slow for it to be like detrimental. But like, because I've always just been like the hustle guy. Like the faster I can do something, the better. Like that's my entire jiu-jitsu game is just being as fast as possible and just doing the craziest shit ever. Nothing high percentage whatsoever. Nothing fundamental. All crazy stuff. So but like slowing yourself down is probably the hardest thing for someone to do. Like if you think about like the first time anyone's done jiu-jitsu, you've done it. It's like, okay, I think I get this now. Now I'm going to go fast. You think that's what the coach wants to see. You want to think the coach is like, oh man, you're so fast. That was awesome. But like that's never what happens. It's like they're like, hey, you definitely need to slow down, or like you could have definitely done that better. You could have hurt somebody if you did it that fast. So it's like. From a coaching standpoint, it makes so much sense, but then from an athletic standpoint, it's hard to apply that onto yourself, for me at least, you know, so.
I feel like what I've noticed a lot, and like when I work with Bernardo or when I work with you, I know what you're doing, but you're doing it very slow and methodical. Like, I can't stop this.
Yeah, it's awful feeling, isn't it?
I'm like, I know exactly what's happening, and you're doing it slowly.
Yeah.
And I'm just getting burned right now.
Yeah.
I'm getting burned.
And that's like the peak of, I mean, that's like the best part of jiu-jitsu, right? It's like my jiu-jitsu is so good that I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing because you're gonna know what I'm doing, and you can't stop it. It's like the slow train that's coming through, and it's like it's gonna happen. And that's where the balance, right? Like where that's an amazing part of jiu-jitsu, and then there's also like the super flashy berimbolo, which is like it's a whole nother element of jiu-jitsu that's really, really exciting and effective. And having the balance to know when
Effective
to use
can
both.
be debatable in some of the things I do. But.
Yeah.
What I like to, how I kind of go to this topic here about hustle and slow down and chill out is when I first look at it, this may be slightly perfectionist of me. I know I have a problem with that. I like doing things perfectly the first time, which is never happens. But before doing something, I like to map it out as best as I can. But then once I start doing it, just go. Just hustle. Like if I have this whole thing planned out, when I start doing it, I think this is one thing I'm actually kind of good at. I'm a very decisive person. If I want to do something,
I'm not.
If I want to do, up to the decision, that's kind of where I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But once I was like, okay, this is my decision. That's my decision. I don't change it, which I feel like is kind of built into this, that you slow down to figure out all the pieces, and then once you put all the pieces together, that's when you just hustle.
That's a really good way to think about it.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know if this is what Lou meant by his quote, but he said every minute on the field. I don't know if he meant that as in we're only hustling when we're on the field, because obviously he did it all the time. But that's kind of how I took it. He said you're hustling every minute you're on the field. Like when I'm on the mat, that's when I'm hustling. But when we're drilling, I guess it's still on the mat. But when you're rolling, that's when you're hustling.
Yep.
But when you're drilling, that's when you're methodical. That's when you're mapping it out. That's when you're putting the pieces together. And then when you're doing that, your 10-round Tuesday, that's when you're going hustle.
Well, and it goes back to why was that guy not hustling down the line? It's because he was being lazy.
Yep.
And he had like this feeling like he was too good for it.
Yeah.
Versus like the hustler that's like, hey, I'm just gonna like put it all out there, and like maybe it's 1 in 1,000 times that forces a bad throw, and then I get on base, but it's worth that 1 in 1,000.
One of the things I like the best about the quote you just said is like you owe it to yourself and to your team to hustle. Yeah. And like that's something I try to just like burn into my students' minds, like the kids. Like I feel like that's one of the most important things they have to know, because like some people are like that I've grown up with, they're just so lazy they don't understand that like that affects other people around them, or they just don't care. And they don't care because they don't think they're worth it, or they don't think other people are worth it. And like I feel like knowing that you owe it to yourself to do your very best and like try as hard as you can in something is like probably one of the most important like life lessons you could possibly teach somebody. And that's what I like, that like how it's like you owe it to yourself and your team, you know, to do your best in practice.
More accountability too.
Yeah.
I know you're gonna like this one, Tristan. This one's practice, and I think you already quoted it before. Then practice more. This is the swordsman. He says, because as Octavian's teacher Arius Didymus said, practice over a long time turns into second nature. We won't rise to the occasion. We fall to our level of training. 1,000 days of training to develop, Washi would write, 10,000 days of training to polish. For a samurai, there was no such thing as pretty good. Only you will know what you need to practice from morning until night, what to repeat 10,000 times. It won't be easy, but in that burden is also freedom and confidence, the pleasure of the flow state, the rhythm of second nature, the quiet calmness of knowing that from the practice, you'll know exactly what to do when it counts, the pride and the dependability of doing it too.
You know who made me think about this is Samuel. Like Samuel like will tell you how much you need to practice and if you're not doing it right. Like I remember I quit my job to train full time. I was like, man, I'm just tired all the time. Like I'm just training a lot. He's like, how many times a day you training? I was like, well, I train at the 10 a.m., the 11 a.m., and the 7 p.m. And he was like, no 6 a.m.? And I was like, no, I wouldn't be able to sleep. And he was like, you're a full-time athlete, you don't train at the 6 a.m.? And I was like, I just haven't figured it out. He's like, well, you've been trying to figure it out for months now. He's like, I'm 40-something, and I'm training at the 6 a.m. And that's when I was like, man, he's right. And I mean, even Joe tells me it sometimes. He's like, dude, I'm training more than you are. And that makes me mad is when someone's like, I'm doing more than you, because that's like a competitive thing. And so I feel like Samuel definitely is the one that like taught me that, because he is insane with how disciplined he is. And he's got a very samurai approach to his training too. Like just like I know that if he gets hit with something, even remotely, not even if he was hit with something, if someone got him into X guard, he would like just like murder X guard passes like after that. You know, and I see him drill a lot too. Like I've heard the drilling stories of how much he would drill. So it's like he's probably the quintessential person I know in my life that's like practice more. You know, he's like the guy that taught me that detail. So
Yeah,
I'm sure you can say the same.
I think the same thing. Samuel's like, I saw him do it a lot, and that's what attracted me to that. And I think like surrounding yourself with people like that is really important, because they say like, you're like your 10 closest friends or whatever, you act like them. I think there's a lot to that, you know, like if you surround yourself with people that are lazy or they're complainers and all this, you're going to start being complaining about everything, lazy, or you surround yourself with a bunch of warriors like that, it's like you're going to be like, man, am I going to be the one that's lazy in this group? Hell no.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
That's a good transition to just work. This one's the writer Joyce Carol Oates, and I think we got about 5 more minutes, so we'll try to blitz this up. But she says, I have always lived a very conventional life of moderation. She explained, absolutely regular hours, nothing exotic, no need even to organize my time. We each have 24 hours a day, which is more than enough time to do what we must do. Always and forever, the reward is the work. It is joy itself. It is torture, and it also heaven, sweaty, wonderful salvation. We don't get anywhere in this life without work, but we can get somewhere magical when we do the kind of work that doesn't even feel like work. And I'm just going to keep going, then we can talk at the end. This one's Angela Merkel. Dress for success. We talked about that a little bit earlier, your appearance. So when the world is unpredictable, one thing we do control is how we take care of ourselves. Making our bed, tucking in our shirt, running a comb through our hair. These are little things we can always do, practices that instill order and cleanliness in a messy situation. And then sweat the small stuff, but don't be superficial. Welcome to temperance. It's a balance of opposites by definition. And this is the last chapter here, which is seek discomfort. Success breeds softness. It also breeds fear. We become addicted to our creature comforts, and then we become afraid of losing them. By seeking out discomfort, we toughen ourselves up. If we're not going to live an utterly Spartan existence day to day, then we better practice toughness regularly enough that we're not afraid of it. The person who has the upper hand of their soul, the person who can go without, the person who does not fear change or discomfort or a reversal of fortune. This person is harder to kill and harder to defeat. They are also happier, more well-balanced, and in better shape.
John Danaher talks a lot about that one. Like, when it's not about the easiest thing is discipline up to becoming a champion, but the hardest thing is discipline after being a champion. It's like you see that a lot with, I feel like, Conor McGregor. It's like after he got really famous, he's like, I don't got to work that much anymore. Then he just gets murdered in his next few fights. But then someone like Gordon, he still sleeps on the mats. He's got a multi-million-dollar mansion that he can easily just stay at. He sleeps on the mats every single day. I think it's, I don't know what the quote is exactly, but it's like when you sleep in silk sheets, it's like you're not going to be that disciplined anymore. Like once you've made it, it's a lot harder to stay disciplined.
When you sleep in silk, your skin becomes soft.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something I feel like a lot of coaches talk about. It's like it's not about like winning the belt. It's about like continuing to win it, like knowing that you're not done ever. Like always striving for excellence. Something I feel like.
And that's one of the beauties of jiu-jitsu. There's no end. There's no like, oh, I finally arrived. Samuel, right? Like he's still grinding daily, still working on stuff, still, tuning his craft. Mm-hmm. And it's like there's no arrival, so you always have to be striving.
Yep.
Which is the striving is what gives us our meaning and our feeling of success. And I love that line where it says it's our heaven and it's our hell. It's our it's brutal, but it's what we're here for. And working, dressing for success, seeking discomfort. A lot of people are afraid of being uncomfortable.
Yep.
And jiu-jitsu forces you to be uncomfortable.
Dude, I remember the first time I ever panicked, I had Joe mount me my first practice, and like the sweat from the gis on my face. It's like he's trying to mount an arm bar me. I'm like, what's happening? I tapped before the arm bar was even put on. And it's like that's uncomfortable, and like I don't feel that too much when I do jiu-jitsu now, but I tell you what, when I see that cold plunge, that's like my discomfort now. It's like going in there.
I agree.
And like, but when you don't do it, like that's a standard you've set for yourself. Like you didn't do your very best that day. So it's like you have to do it.
What that reminds me of is when you are younger and you're scared of the dark, what do? You hit your lights and run to your bed. If you do that every day, what is that teaching your brain? That's teaching your brain, I am justified in being scared of the dark because I'm constantly running from it. Mm-hmm. So then you become more scared of it, and then it spirals downhill. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like that. If you seek discomfort and say, this is not dangerous because I'm getting better at it, then it becomes less of a discomfort, and then you keep pushing yourself further.
Yeah, we'll say after I started martial arts, I became less afraid of the dark.
Yeah.
But I needed a night light for a good long while. I'll say that. So.
Well, to get you guys to training on time, anything you want to add in the closing there, Joe?
Oh, that was really cool. I like it. That was awesome.
Well, it was an honor for the book club to have you here today.
Yes,
so you're now honorary part of it.
Sensei
Sensei's here. So everyone out there, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day. Take care.
Bye.